What's up, guys? This is Andrew from Anti-Saint, and in today's video I'm going to go over how I was able to trigger some videos for my PETAL Modular Light system over Touchdesigner. The guys over at PETAL have created a Touchdesigner file here for feeding the modular lights that they have. Check out their stuff, PETAL Lighting. I'll have some links in the description to both their YouTube channel and Super Valid Designs YouTube channel, so you can check that stuff out. It's really cool. So basically, though, the idea here is that I created synchronized videos for all of our songs that activate the light show for these tube lights that we made. And I want them to be in time with our backtrack. We're on a click track, so I made these videos to that click track. So it should be, as simple as, once the song starts, the video also starts at the same time. And the only way to do that is to have the video triggered via MIDI. So real quick, I'll show you what our backtrack session looks like. All the dirty secrets here. So we have this click that's running, little robo voice telling us what song it is. Our samples, little beefy guitar stuff because I'm the only guitarist. I've got my Axe changes built in, DMXs for other lighting that we have, and then I have this Touchdesigner MIDI track, and that's what we're going to focus on. So in this instance, I'm sending it down channel 2 just so that it's separate from all my other MIDI devices. And you'll see that I just have one long note that's kind of following the entirety of the song. If we look here, I've got this C-2 octave I go to quite frequently because I made this just a blackout video, just a black loop basically. And then each song is assigned its own MIDI note for the videos. So that's kind of what the backtrack session looks like. And how that ties into Touchdesigner is you'll see that I've got this big column of nonsense right here. And we'll make sense of this nonsense here. Basically what I'm doing is I'm telling Touchdesigner to listen for a MIDI note. When it hears that note, it's going to activate a button that I've created within the MIDI map. That button is going to correspond to a select chop here that then feeds a chop execute to send a value to a constant. And that constant is going to send that value to a null, which the switcher is going to look for in order to determine what the index number is and which video to play based off that index number. So it's pretty simple. It took me about a day and a half to get this all figured out, but once I did, it made a lot of sense here. So I'll just kind of walk you through the thought process here. So first thing, we're going to go into dialogues, into the MIDI device mapper. You're going to want to have your DAW of choice opened up before you open up Touchdesigner. That way it shows up in your input devices here. So in my case, I'm using Logic Pro. And then I tell it to listen to my Logic Pro X MIDI map that I created on channel 2. So the first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to establish this MIDI map. You do that by going over to the Devices tab here in the MIDI mapper, and you can just hit Add Device right here, and then you can name it whatever you want. So in my case, I named it the Logic Pro X, since that's the DAW that I'm using. Then the next thing that you're going to want to do is add buttons here. And these are going to correspond to the MIDI notes. Now you'll see that I've got a bunch of characters in here. And what these are is these are, on the left side, these are on messages. And on the right side, they are off messages. And you'll see that here with this MIDI log that pops up. So you'll see I have a note on. It was 91007F. That corresponds to my first button. And the note off, 810040. That's the note off. And basically, you're going to want to set that up ahead of time. Like, you're going to want to set up your MIDI ahead of time to do this, because the off message is going to be different versus if you hit it like on an external MIDI controller that you might have, right? The virtual out of the DAW is going to send a slightly different message. So you're going to want to make sure that the on and off message for your note, and do it one note at a time, is going to be the same. Now you'll notice there is a pattern. So like if you start on the very lowest MIDI notes, it's the C octave -2. It's 91 to 007F. C sharp is 01. D is 02, etc. Right? It goes until I think 9, and then it switches over to having letters involved in that second value. But you'll see that everything else is the same. The 91 stays the same. The 7F stays the same in my case. And then the 81 and the 40 stay the same as well for the off. But make sure that you're doing this through your DAW. Just play it. Let this MIDI log kind of record what exactly the value is, and then you just copy and paste those in. So that's the first thing you're going to want to do, is just create enough buttons to correspond to the amount of songs and the amount of videos that you want to trigger over MIDI. Once you've done that, you're going to create a MIDI map chop here, and that's going to be populated with all of those buttons that you just created automatically. So you don't have to worry about, importing in any extra data from that. It's just going to go ahead and populate all the buttons that you've created. And once those MIDI notes are played, you'll see that the value of each of these buttons is going to jump from 0 to 1. And why that's important is we're going to link to these select chops. And we're going to tell each chop to only listen for one button. So my first chop here is only listening for when button 1 is activated. My second select chop is only listening for button 2, etc. In my case, I've got 15 total buttons. The first one being for a blackout video, the rest of them corresponding to each song within our set list. And then from there, you're going to attach a chop execute to each one of these selects. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit because I did have to Google this code. It was provided by a gentleman named Matt. That's within the Touchdesigner community. And basically what this is doing is it's looking for this select button to be turned on. When it is, it's going to send the value of this chop execute, so in this case, it's 0, over to a constant that I've created within this. And then at the same time, it's also going to tell the video with that same ID number, same value here, to start from the beginning. So this basically, every time the MIDI note that's corresponding to the video is activated, is going to trigger the value of that to a constant. And I'm going to get to this part here in a second, but it's also going to make sure that the video plays from the very beginning. Because as you'll see here, as we've just been talking and hanging out, all my videos are playing on a loop. They're all in the middle of the song, right? But I don't want them to just start in the middle of the song whenever that video gets activated. So this little bit of code here resets that from happening. It's going to start it from the beginning. All right, so now that this portion of the MIDI mapper is kind of outlined and discussed, we'll talk about the constant. So again, this execute is feeding a value to a constant here. This is our constant. It's just going to look for a change in this value right here. So right now we're on 0. It's being fed into a null. And the reason we're doing that is because I'm telling my video switcher here that it's going to read its index value based off of the value of our null. So right now we're showing it's at 0. It's just on a blackout video right here. And what I'll go ahead and do here is I'm going to activate one of our tracks. So we'll go over here into our second song, play that, and you'll now see that my index is at 2. My constant is reading at 2 because the MIDI button that is associated with that track is currently on. I don't know why these give a red X error. It's probably something within the code that's not being satisfied, but it is doing its job in that it's transmitting the value of this chop execute to this constant. And it's telling the video switcher to now play the video 2. And that is a very quick and dirty explanation of how I've got MIDI controlling my videos in Touchdesigner via our Backtrack. I'm going to go ahead and say I am not any kind of a coder. I have no idea how most of this stuff even works within this pre-built template that the PETAL Modular Lighting team came up with. I just know it's awesome and it works. And if this helps you, implement a system where you can have your Backtrack triggering videos so that your lights are in sync with your playing, this is a very workable, pretty easy to implement solution. I'm sure there might be another way to do this that's a little bit easier, but this is what I landed on, and it worked beautifully for me for our last show that we just had. Hope this helps. Be back soon with another video.